Welcome back to MaxBet Podcast. We're here with Shawn Fluharty from Play and Go, but you're not just with Play and Go. You're also the president of the National Council of
Legislators from gaming states. It's
Okay.
long.
That's a
Nickel
long.
G's in the industry, we call it.
Okay. I don't think I would remember either of those, but I love that. And I wonder, does this take every single keyword that you have in your caption on LinkedIn? Like, do you have any extras for any other titles?
No, I think in that little space you have in your bio, completely filled.
Completely filled. Yes. Respectfully so. You have a lot going on. So how do those two roles overlap?
Well, it starts with the legislative side. So we have a part-time legislature in the state of West Virginia. I was first elected in 2014 and started moving legislation like iGaming and sports betting. Proudly was able to pass both pieces of legislation and started with Nickel G's, going regularly, learning about it, and just rose up the ranks. And the overlap, it's helpful to know the inside baseball and how a bill gets passed. And I've been there, I've been in the committee meetings, and certainly with my role in Play and Go, if you're testifying in committee or you're talking to lawmakers, it brings a validity and that knowledge that many people may not have because they simply haven't been through that process. And I think the legislative perspective is the one that kind of stands out in what I'm trying to do with Play and Go and in a regulated market in the U.S.
Yeah.
Nickel G, since I've become president, I feel like I don't want to brag on myself or anything, but we've grown. Yeah. We've had every conference we've had the last couple of years, more people are coming. We're getting more publicity on shows like yours and others, and we're trying to tackle the front topics, the top of the line topics in the gaming industry. We have topics on sweepstakes, predictive markets. Obviously, we put together model legislation in iGaming. When I was attending previously, I would look around the room and it'd be the same panels, the same people. And, as you do on your show, you want to tackle conversations that are important and are the ones that we're having now. So that's what we're trying to do. And our next conference is in Puerto Rico. So I don't think anybody else has been down there for a conference. And many of my friends in the industry were like, I bet you guys can't make that happen. Well, we did, and You're welcome to join us. It's in December, and we're looking forward to that.
I will take you up on that. That sounds like a great place to be in December. So for those who may not be familiar, what does the president of the National Council of Legislators for Gaming States actually do?
Well, we have 2 conferences a year. We have a board. We have various committee hearings that happen throughout that year, and we try to just serve as the backstop for lawmakers. And what I mean by that is if you're a lawmaker in a gaming state, doesn't matter if you're a pro gaming or no gaming at all, right? These legislative pieces come up, and you try to have kind of a knowledge-based, I don't even want to call it a think tank, but ability to go to an organization that has these issues and can say, here are bills that are outstanding in other states, here are legislators you may be able to talk to and bounce ideas off of. And that's essentially what it does. It's an association comprised of lawmakers. It's bipartisan. If I know your political party within that structure, then there's probably something wrong. We're probably talking about things unrelated to gaming. And that's unique about gaming as well. It's very bipartisan. It's one of the few things left in this country that's bipartisan. You have red states who pass it. You have blue states who pass it and expand on it. It also comes into the regulatory side of things because once you pass something, you become a mature state and you're years down the road. What are you learning, and what have you learned that other states, maybe they won't make the same mistakes? And when you have a Nickel G's available to you as a lawmaker, it's a very valuable tool in making sure that you're improving on policy or passing policy that you have had the ability to kind of have checks and balances on the process.
Play and Go operates in multiple regulated markets. What's your approach to building relationships with regulators while still keeping innovation front and center?
Play and Go, what I think separates us from many others, we've done a great job of regulating ourselves, and I'll give you a specific example. So we do not participate in direct bonus buys. Do you know what direct bonus buys are on the iGaming side?
For the listener, can you...
So if you are on your phone and you're on a casino slot game and you're playing and you may be betting $1 a spin, well, flashing on the side of your eye there could be bonus game, bonus game, bonus game, very enticing, right, for the average user. And if you click on that, you can go directly to the bonus game. Now you're going to have to multiply your bet by a large number. Could be 10 times more, 20 times more, 50 times more. We find that to be predatory, and we think you should be entertained by the game. That you should go through, it's almost like a football game. You kick the ball off, and you start down the field, and you have many plays and may get to the end zone. Why do you want to start at the goal line? right? That takes away from the entertainment in the game itself.
Mm-hmm.
We do not do that, and we leave money on the table, quite frankly, by choosing not to have that option. But that's a regulatory structure where in the U.S., because the iGaming industry is still relatively new, I come from a state that's had it since 2019. We're one of the longest running states. But when you start looking at the whole picture in the U.S. and only a handful of states are up and running, it's still a very new legislative perspective. Mm-hmm. So that makes it a very new regulative perspective as well. And so we work to put forward what we believe should be a sustainable model. And that's one that protects the consumer and entertains that individual so that they're not losing all of their money on one spin, right? They're coming back. The last thing we want to do is be predatory. And so we do that on our own, but many others don't follow that same criteria. And I don't put any blame on them because no regulator has said that they need to, but that is an example of what we do that kind of stands out in the industry on our own. And those are regulatory conversations that I have to your premise. Those regulatory conversations that I have throughout the country about, hey, these are things we're doing on our own, and there's really no regulatory structure in place related to that.
Yeah, that's very interesting. What's the most misunderstood aspect of gaming regulation in the U.S. right now?
Well, I think that's a great question. What is misunderstood? I think what could be misunderstood is that regulators hold all the power to just wave a wand and change things. They are constrained by statute. And so it's probably good for us to get in the weeds on this a little bit.
Yeah.
So let's take it down to the very basic legislative understanding. Thousands of bills get introduced in the legislation during a legislative session. Only hundreds make it through. iGaming is one of them. Now, you can have a bill that is very detailed and goes through a tax rate, even includes regulatory provisions. But for every extra line in that statute, that is a constraint on who is responsible in the back end for regulating that law.
Okay.
So regulators are constrained by statute. Now, I think lawmakers are doing a better job, and that's part of my job in communicating with them, to say, let's pass enabling legislation, which enables the experts to make changes that they believe they need to make, because technology changes daily. Yeah. By the time we're done with this podcast, there's going to be some technological changes somewhere. It's just, it's crazy. You go to G2E every year and you see all these things, and it's like year to year, the floor changes with new technology. Now, let's compare that to the legislative process, which is slow as hell. Like, laws take forever to pass. So the last thing you want are lawmakers being required to go back and modify the law. You need regulators to have that, use their expertise, but have that ability by statute to make changes. So I think what a lot of people fail to understand is regulators, if the law is perfectly drawn up, if it's crafted in the right way, yes, they can make changes. But if it's not and they're constrained by statute, a lot of times they have to go to the lawmakers and say, I think we should do this, but I can't do it on my own. And then the lawmakers have to go back and amend a law. You know how hard that is to go back in and amend something that's already been put in statute? So that's kind of the confusion I see when speaking with regulators throughout the country and lawmakers, is that they need to understand that let the experts be the experts. And with technology changing, the regulators are the ones on the ground. They're going to conferences, and they're the ones who are seeing the technological changes, and they're dealing with the industry, quite frankly. Like, you talk to people in the industry, they're not dealing with lawmakers daily when it comes to the licensing process, regulatory process. They're dealing with the regulators. So let them do their thing.
Yeah. Do you feel like it sounds like they're often misunderstood? Because I did not know that process, so I'm glad you said that. But do you feel like they often get a bad rap?
It depends what you're reading. I mean,
Okay.
I think they do at times because, look, they're just doing their jobs.
Yeah.
And they're at a disadvantage. So think if you're a regulator in whatever state you may be. You could be in West Virginia. There's a lot of regulatory things coming up in Massachusetts right now. They're holding hearings. But they are responsible for every aspect of gaming under the umbrella. So if you are a lottery or a gaming commission, you're not just focusing on iGaming. You may have iLottery. You may have brick and mortar casinos. You may have LVL machines in your bars and restaurants.
Yeah.
So they are regulating all of these things. And yet the industry likes to target them and say, well, you know, they're doing this related to sports betting, or they're doing this related to iGaming. And I think it's good to sit back. First off, I don't think as somebody in the industry, I don't think it's a good business perspective to go after regulators. They have long memories, anger them early, especially if you're trying to open up a market and you're going to them now and they're not happy with you. Good luck down the road. And that's how I feel about these sweepstakes companies. They're going in and we could say that whether they're legal or not, but they're going in and operating. So when iGaming does become legal and you're a supplier who's now operating in the illegal market in a state or competing directly against iGaming in states, do you think they're going to want you to have a license after that? I would think not, right? We're going to reward the good actors, not the bad actors.
Yeah. Well, speaking of sweeps, we've seen rapid changes with unregulated markets in the past few years, from sweeps to skill-based games. How do you see these being legislation?
You're seeing it right now. Everybody talks about sports betting and, sports betting took off quickly. Why hasn't iGaming? Okay, well, there's many arguments, and we can get in the weeds on that. But for the sweeps piece, I haven't seen states react organically like they have. But what I mean by that, there's no certain company pushing it. There's no certain lobbying group pushing it. What has happened is that the reality is setting in for lawmakers that this illegal market exists, and it's stealing money from your states. It is revenue theft. If you're a state that has passed iGaming, the last thing you want is this illegal market taking away from revenue to your state. And if you haven't passed iGaming and they're operating illegally, well, wouldn't that infuriate you as well? You want to protect your consumers, and an unregulated market does not do that. So states are reacting by many different ways. Their attorney generals are sending opinions, or in their gaming commissions are sending cease and desist letters. And in many states, these companies are backing out on their own. What's funny is not one, as of the airing of this podcast, has taken things to court. They haven't shown up. I'm a lawyer. So if I have an issue and I believe I need recourse, where do I go? I go to the courtroom. Why aren't these companies challenging things in court? Because they know they're in the wrong and they're not going to win. So a lot of these companies are just backing out and heading home. And that's the reaction we're getting. But many states are doing this on their own accord, whether it's through legislation or it's through the regulatory process, which, again, if you had a legal iGaming market, it makes it easier, I would argue, to go after these companies because there's no more gray area, right? You're operating, it's clear, black and white. Either you're regulated, licensed, and taxed, or you're not. And some of the opposition to that, you're stealing revenue from states. And that's what's going on. And that's what states are realizing, whether they're losing revenue from a legal, regulated market that currently exists, or if they have to go create the market. So then bring in the regulated one and tell these companies, no, you're not going to do this in our state.
Yeah, because the truth is, the play doesn't stop. It just moves. So you might as well move it somewhere where you can tax it and regulate it.
It's an easy sell, yes. Yeah. If you're a lawmaker, and this is what's now with the new administration in office, these states are basically being told, you're on your own. The federal government's not going to be here for you all the time. So what does that mean as a lawmaker? Well, if you're my constituent, I could tell you, well, I'll tell you what, Hillary, we're going to have to raise your property taxes. What's your response going to be?
No thanks.
No thanks. I pay enough already.
Yes.
Okay. Well, if I also told you, Hillary, tell you what, we can raise new revenue without raising your current taxes. And we can do that through a thing called iGaming. What would you say, even if you don't even know what iGaming is?
I love that.
You love that idea, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's an easy sell.
Mm-hmm.
So you can raise new revenue without raising taxes. And where the money goes is also something that's not talked about enough. In states like West Virginia, it fuels the Promise Scholarship. In states like Georgia, it fuels like all these states, where the money goes is very important. Mm-hmm. And 9 times out of 10, it's going to the education sector. And what you want to do is keep your young people in your state, allow them to go to universities in your state without taking on insane amount of student loans, which we all know is a huge issue in our country. So that's the conversation that I think needs to be talked about more, and that's what we're helping to facilitate.
Do you think this will be solved more by proactive legislation or by market pressure forcing change?
They kind of come together. The market pressure is on, then comes the lawmakers, right? If you're being approached and saying, hey, this legal companies are operating in your state, regulating is the way to go. Mm-hmm. I think the political pressure will also come in because it is an avenue to protect the consumer and raise new revenue. But the education gap's the main issue. Lawmakers, and I've said this a million times, struggle to fully understand what iGaming is. And we could break it down this way. Bills that get passed usually come from leadership. Leadership's comprised of usually individuals who have been there a long time. And they are, based on the data we have, 60 or older. Now, no ageism here, but 60 or older, casino on your phone. Probably my parents struggle, my colleagues struggle with understanding how things operate on their phone. But now we're telling people, oh, by the way, now there's a casino on it. And that is this gap, this education gap with lawmakers that individuals like myself and others are trying to close. Why it's important is legislative leadership selects the agenda. They tell their committee chairs, these are the bills we're going to run. The committee chairs put the bill on the agenda. It goes through the committee process. It goes to the floor. If it passes, it goes to the other chamber, and we do it all over again. It's a long, drawn-out process. Mm-hmm. But if that's selective legislative leadership who dictates what bills go on the agenda, if they don't know what the hell it is, you're already losing. Yeah. And that's something that I think not necessarily lawmakers need to understand, but those who are supporting expansion of the industry, you got to go into these areas. And you can't just show up when a bill gets introduced. You can't just have the conversations at the 11th hour. You have to facilitate those conversations early and often. And that's something that I think we're starting to wake up to. But the industry, I think, sat back and said, sports betting took off, so will iGaming. Look at the money it makes. That's not how you sell things. But I think you're going to see real movement in the next couple of years.
So when you talk about the need for education when it comes to getting these bills even close to getting on the floor, what's the solution? Is it like lobbyists? Is it how are you educating the people who are choosing?
You have to actually have the conversations direct.
Who should be having these conversations?
So let's take Ohio, for instance. When a bill gets introduced, and the introduction of bills comes from lawmakers, right? Mm-hmm. But whether that bill moves or not is a decision made by leadership. Yeah. So if you're in Ohio, and what's good about Ohio right now is on the House side, the individual who introduced the bill is the finance chair. So he's in leadership. Mm-hmm. If he gets it, chances are the rest are going to get it as well. That's, I think, the targeting that needs to happen is understanding the process enough that you want to move a bill, it's more than just getting it introduced. And whether it's an association or it's myself or others looking for expansion. Look, I'm kind of a one-man band, but there are groups out there that push for expansion. There are regulatory groups who I won't say push for expansion, but they have the knowledge. Bringing in the education lobby, then how do you do that? Well, in some states like West Virginia, I moved legislation a couple years ago that said the data that's received by operators needs to go to West Virginia University for the research center, just like the building we're in right now for UNLV. I mean, that's the model. This data in today's world is the new currency. So lawmakers should realize that. And so should the industry. They should realize we should work together with the universities like UNLV or West Virginia University to push our initiatives because we have that data. That should be a partnership. And if you go into a lawmaker's office or any capital and you have the education lobby supporting it, the university supporting it, in Maryland, Morgan State is a prime example. They would like to see iGaming legislation move forward because they want to use that data and their research available. That's what brings us together. And I think the industry has been so deer in the headlights on this and thinking they're the only one that can move legislation. Build the partnerships. And I like that three-prong approach. Lawmakers, regulators, educators. They're the ones that are the tripod that can help put this together.
So when you're looking across like the states, do you think more states are leaning towards let's just ban iGaming? Like we want to just shut down any kind of unregulated gaming and they think that that's the way to go? Or are they more like open to let's eventually get iGaming on the docket?
I think they're realizing shutting down iGaming is impossible.
It doesn't, yeah.
You're not. When 50% of the online ads, according to the AGA, as of a few weeks ago, American Gaming Association said that 50% of online gaming ads are from the illegal market. That's insane to me.
Yeah.
I can't think of another industry where 50% of the ads you see are from an illegal, unlicensed, unregulated operator or supplier. But the reality is, in these states, nobody's getting prosecuted, nobody's going to jail, nobody's facing incredible fines until you regulate. And I think the reality is for many of these states is that we're never going to get rid of it entirely. It almost goes back, I have actually a pretty good story on this. So years ago when we were discussing cannabis in the state of West Virginia, a group of us flew out to Colorado. Obviously, they were one of the first states to regulate cannabis. And Governor Hickenlooper at the time, he had West Virginia ties, he was meeting with us. And he looks at us and goes, guys, tell you what, we had a $1 billion black market in cannabis. Now we have a $100 million black market in cannabis.
Wow.
And I find that analogous to the gaming situation, is that there are billions of dollars being circulated in this country, and hundreds of billions, quite frankly, in the illegal market. And if you regulate, you capture. Are you going to capture all of it? No. And I'm not selling it to people like you're going to capture all of it.
Yeah.
But are you going to take a vast majority of that, and are you going to regulate it in a way that protects the consumer? Think about that industry now, in the cannabis industry. If you go into a dispensary, you know exactly what you're getting.
Yeah.
Why? Because it's regulated. You get on a game that's in a regulated market, you know it's fair and transparent. And there are checks and balances and there are protections for that individual. That doesn't exist in the black market.
Yeah. Going from 1 billion to 100 million, that's insane.
Yeah.
Crazy.
And that quote stuck with me. If there's a black market out there, you have an obligation to shrink it and protect the consumer. They favor expansion of gambling because they know it brings in money. And they know it exists already, so why not capture that market?
How much is the unregulated gaming market worth in the U.S.? Obviously, it varies state to state, but like you were saying, Colorado was $1 billion in cannabis. How much is it estimated to be?
According to the AGA, which I was reading the article on the way here this morning, hundreds of billions. Hundreds of billions. And we're not just talking about iGaming. That's the big umbrella. Okay. That's skill games, that's iGaming, that's everything. So I don't want to say it's all just iGaming.
Yeah, but still, these are unregulated.
That's right.
Yeah. What do you think that the industry protects but shouldn't?
What do you what was your thinking on that?
I mean, I guess you could go even like the smoking route, smoking if you wanted to go land-based. You know, there are a lot of really like, we've always done it this way, so we're going to keep doing it this way. I was just curious if you saw anywhere you're like, guys, what are we doing?
I think they are overly protective on their data and supplying that to states. And as I said earlier, I hate to give away any of my trade secrets when it comes to lobbying efforts or having those conversations, but if you're an industry and you go to a university in a selected state and you say, you know what, we have all this data available for research purposes, and we'd love for you to essentially be a partner in that. The reaction you're going to get from those universities would be, sign me up, because you can be a UNLV 2.0. You can be another West Virginia university where there's programs and we're putting people in the workforce. It's almost like in law school, I've said this before, when I graduated with judges, I graduated with defense attorneys, and I graduated with civil litigants, like trial attorneys, all under that same space, right?
Yeah.
So at these universities, with that data available, we could be graduating people who work in the consumer protection field, responsible gambling field. We could also be graduating people who work in the industry and want to be the next CEO of an innovative company. But yet the industry seems to say, we've been in this lane for so long that we want to keep this lane exactly how it has been for the past 20 years. That's something I think they've been overprotective on, and they're losing out on the ability to build partnerships and get legislation passed.
I know here they have the International Gaming Institute at UNLV, and we've talked to like Dr. Brett Barbanel. She's amazing. She's been on a couple times. But yeah, they're doing so many great things. If there could be that triad connection you were talking about between like the educators,
absolutely,
that would be incredible.
Like I said, I don't want to give away my trade secrets, but
but more people should do that.
I think so. I mean, it's a no-brainer.
So when you're talking about like new emerging markets, I think the U.S., some people consider it a little bit bottlenecked when it comes to state by state versus federal.
Sure.
Because you're looking at other markets like LATAM, they're doing more sweeping regulations and they're able to scale much faster. Do you think that could ever be the case in the U.S., or do you think we're always going to be tied to the state by state? There's a possibility with like prediction markets being federally regulated, but what's your opinion
That's
on
a
that?
fun battle right now, the CFTC.
Yeah.
I think the states are the adults in the room. I think the federal government has dropped the ball on many things. They continue to. Look at the big bad better bill, bad for betters, whatever the hell you want to call it. Look, that was a colossal error. Look at the hearings they had recently on sports betting that turned into a circus. It turned into a political soundbite circus. As the federal government has said, the states should be tasked with gambling regulation.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's where it needs to stay. I do not see sweeping federal takeover at all, like you see in many other countries. Is that ball moving slower? Sure. There's more checks and balances that way as well. I mean, on the CFTC issue, if there's a new administration that comes in and they put a new person at the top of the CFTC, what happens?
Yeah.
It could blow up overnight.
Yeah.
But if you have a state-by-state, lane opened up, then you have protection in place. So it cuts both ways. And I think the idea that we're going to see sweeping federal regulation, not happening.
If the U.S. legalized iGaming everywhere tomorrow, who's the most ready to dominate?
I don't know if there's a particular state that would dominate, but I would say what states have the infrastructure. Naturally, you would be like, well, California, Texas, but they don't have the gambling infrastructure in place.
Yeah, that would have been my guess.
Sure.
Yeah.
But I think you're seeing states like Pennsylvania and Michigan now who have the infrastructure in place. You're seeing states get into the MASIGA, Multi-State Internet Gaming Agreement, and they're working together. So you're going to see in the future these states with iGaming, you're going to have progressive slots that are going to be tied to multiple states.
Okay.
Similarly to how we do poker.
Do you think that there's a state where you're like, yeah, it'll be a cold day in hell by the time whenever, like they're never going to approve it?
What's funny is,
I mean, California is pretty adamant. Like they're having a very difficult time. But
probably Utah. Can you even get a beer there these days?
actually, that's true.
It's got to be Utah, right?
Yeah. Okay, I'm going to ask you some rapid fire questions. So you just top of your head, first thing that comes to mind. Tighter regulations or faster market expansion?
Tighter regulations.
U.S. state-by-state rollouts or full federal regulation?
U.S. state by state. They are the adults in the room.
Lobbyists or lawyers?
Lobbyists who are lawyers.
Okay, both. Okay. Too many regulations or not enough?
Not enough.
Bigger threat, offshore casinos or unregulated sweepstakes?
I mean, it's hard to parse that, quite honestly. I would say in the immediate threat in the U.S. would be sweepstakes.
Money or influence?
Define influence.
I've known this guy for forever. Like,
Isn't that politics?
Yeah, I guess so.
So I would say this.
Yeah.
Building relationships is everything. I only started working in the industry 2 years ago, and Play and Go came to me with an incredible opportunity, and very thankful for that.
Mm-hmm.
But during that time, through my legislative work, and I was still going to conferences, I was building relationships. That, to me, looking at it now, that decade is invaluable.
Yeah. I asked one of my friends once, she's been in the industry for like 18, 20 years. And I said, what's like your best piece of advice for the industry? And she said, you better be nice to everybody because it's a very small industry and everybody sticks around and you don't know if you're going to be working for that person or with that person in 10, 20 years. So you better make sure your relationships are like ironclad.
Yes, I completely agree.
What's more feared, bad press or bad legislation?
Bad legislation. And there's so much bad legislation.
The industry's worst habit, overpromising or under-delivering?
Overpromising. I think that happened with sports betting.
As far as new market entry, focus on early adapters or proven gaming markets?
Proven gaming markets because the infrastructure's there.
Which one do you think is more urgent to solve? Offshore iGaming or illegal sports betting?
Illegal iGaming.
Because there's more money.
Most sports betting has been brought in. Now that states have been up and running, that black market is shrinking. It exists. It's always going to exist.
Mm-hmm.
But the iGaming side is exploding. And when you're seeing the data, and as the American Gaming Association said, we're talking about a 20+% increase in just 3 years. That's a hell of a lot. I mean, you can't really blame them. Nobody was pushing back.
Yeah.
And now you're seeing the pushback.
Who would you recommend to come on the podcast next?
Oh man, are you airing this portion?
Yes, yes.
Who?
An intro would also be nice.
Okay, you haven't had BP3, Bill Pascrell III?
No.
You had him? All right. BP3 is a great interview.
Okay.
We did at iGaming Next last year. We essentially had on the main floor the two of us going back and forth. And so he's entertaining. He's very knowledgeable. He helped spur iGaming in New Jersey. My man, Howard Glaser, he would also be a great interview. He'll come in. He'll probably have a cigar. So if you can't smoke here, I don't know that you can have him on. But the guy has a cigar on him 24/7. And we went to Louisiana to testify, and I was in the back of his small car. We drove from New Orleans to Baton Rouge. We get there, and he's like, today will be easy. We're just basically going in, and we're going to introduce ourselves to some legislators and testify. But we both thought it's going to be a quick intro. Nice to meet you.
Yeah.
You know, we get in there. They sit us down in the front, the main panel, and they are grilling us. They are just grilling us. And we held our own. But I'll never forget, after we got out of there, we're driving back, and Glaser's got his cigar smoke. He thinks it's going out the window, and it's basically blowing back into my face.
You're just getting hot
as
boxed
I'm in
there.
Oh yeah, I'm getting drilled back here, but I don't say a word. We go back. He's going back. Goes, well, hell, that wasn't like anything we thought it was going to be, was it?
Well, thank you so much for coming on today, Shawn. Super informative. And always a great talk, so you're welcome back anytime.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Awesome. All right, have a good one.